Hello, everybody. We are starting exactly on time today. Hey, it's our last update of the year, update number 6. Although we actually did 7 different things this year. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But this update, we thought it would only be fitting to end the year talking about what do we need to really understand going into 26 as far as operationalizing AI. And so I'm going to give you some new thoughts we've never really shared with anybody before here at FPOV. And then I'm also going to cover some things that if you've seen me give any of the keynotes I've been giving in the last month or two, you might have seen it. But the important thing to understand is just we are moving into a very different phase when it comes to AI, and it is the operationalizing. And so that's really where we want to start, is we want to explain the phases that technology goes through. Now, I know a lot of you have seen the Gartner Hype Cycle. And so the Gartner Hype Cycle, of course, shows that technology, it gets invented, then it gets overhyped, and then it drops down into the valley of despair. And then it comes up, a lot of technologies come up the plateau of productivity. All right, if you're familiar with that, I'm going to show you a different type of what we think of as a value curve. This is for some of the technologies that never drop down into the valley of despair. And there are a few. If you think about the internet itself, it never dropped down into a valley of despair. If you think about mobile, once the iPhone came out, mobile never dropped down into any kind of valley of despair. It really was just always up and to the right. The question is just, how fast does the technology go up and to the right? So I'm going to show you kind of a really important type of curve to understand of what's going on with AI today. All right, so here's a curve. What's going on with AI is there are generally 3 parts to this value curve. The first part, and this is true for AI, but it was true for, again, mobile computing. It was true for the internet. It's true for any technology that never really drops down into a valley of despair, right? So you have the first stage, which is basically the foundations are being laid for that technology. And in a lot of cases, I think it's experimenting would be the way that we would think about it. Then there is a really important middle stage. The middle stage is the operationalizing stage. This is where the technology, it comes off the shelf from being an experiment, and it's starting to be used across an entire organization, all departments. It is impacting the day-to-day operations of the organization. It is the operationalizing stage. It is a ladder to climb, right? It is a big hill of progress that gets made. And then eventually the level of, think about the level of innovation starts to tail off a little bit. And then certainly the level of operationalizing, because we've now fully woven it into the organization. There's less work to do to put more of it into the organization. That changes to a stage that we would just say the achieving stage, right? Or the realization of the benefits. So this is a very common curve. Just want you to make sure that you're familiar with this, because it allows us to then start looking at this journey of AI. And we can say, all right, 2022, 2023, 2024, those years really were kind of laying the foundations. Foundations being AI governance, foundations being what tools are we going to use? Hey, let's get some education out there, right? So laying some foundations to actually be able to make this AI journey. 25, this year, it really started to change. Like we started to see some clients, not all, but we saw some clients start to move into an operationalizing phase. Right? They are doing much heavier rollouts. They are, again, doing use case harvesting across the entire organization. They are building AI capabilities across all departments. Right? So we're already starting to see that with maybe the more AI elite people in 2025. 2026 is a pretty big pivot year. And that's the whole reason why we want to have this conversation with all of you today. Is we really want you to understand the importance of the year 2026 in the AI journey when it comes to the market. Now, if I just kind of finish this out, I'll skip a few years and I'll say, all right, at the top of the operationalizing curve, maybe organizations that move with a pretty good pace, right, will be fully operationalized by 2030. And then maybe by 2032, right now we have organizations that are doing the realization, like they're just achieving with AI. It's really just measuring the results with very little new operationalizing that they're putting in place. Now, this isn't everyone. I'm talking about people that are moving at a pretty good pace. Now, you might notice that's 10 years. 10 years from 2022, right, to 2032. Sometimes people think, oh, that's a long time. It's not a long time. I mean, if we look at the iPhone was brought out in 2007, he said, well, before you had all the apps that we have today, you know, what did we have by 2017? It was pretty operationalized, wasn't really done yet, right? So anyway, we've seen this curve. Yes, AI is moving faster, but this is, again, what I think organizations running at a pretty good pace are probably doing. Now, if you look at the three phases, this first phase, I think you want to think of it as these are the early movers, right, that are kind of moving through this phase. There is lots of hype in this early phase. Tons of people speculating, tons of people saying this is going to be the biggest thing. All kinds of headlines that say it's going to be bigger than the internet. Like that's what we see. We saw it with blockchain, by the way, right? Now, the reality, though, is in the foundation stage, in that phase, there's pretty low impact on goals, like on the organization's goals, because it hasn't been operationalized yet. It's just a lot of speculation. All right, if we look at this operationalizing phase, the most important thing I can tell you is this is where the herd spreads out. All right, hear me. Like this is where the herd spreads out. So this is where the slow movers are going to still be stuck in experimenting and trying to work their way over to operationalizing. And we have a number of organizations still there. And then you have organizations that are operationalizing, but going at many different paces, right? Just the speed of coming up that steep hill. So the herd spreads out. The hype starts to calm down a little bit, but this is also where you have to start putting money in, right? The impact is obvious to people. They're seeing it on a day-to-day basis, but you really have to start making the investment. That's part of why this is such a hill to climb. All right, when you get to the achieving stage, the important thing to understand here is the early movers, right? The fast movers, the early movers, they are going to be reaping the benefits up in this phase for a year, 2, 3 years longer than some of their competitors who are still down here trying to operationalize. And I just look at this as climbing this hill is a typical risk-reward bet by those of you who are leaders. You are either going to move at a good pace to operationalize from 26 on for the next at least 5 years, right? Or you're not. You're going to go at a slow pace. And the slow pace may not put you out of business. The problem with the slow pace is it just costs you opportunities. So important that you understand this, you know, just again to set context. When I say that there's still a number of organizations, they have not even gotten into the operationalizing phase yet. You know, here are some statistics that shouldn't be much of a surprise to you. You know, we've got almost 60% of employees that are still using unapproved AI tools, right? Now, whether that's using free tools, whether it's using tools on their own devices, we still have a high percentage using tools on their own. And again, 75% of those will often admit that they are uploading or sharing what could be called sensitive data. 23% of companies still have no AI policy 3 years into this, still have not done a simple thing and written an AI acceptable use policy or even an AI ethics policy. Almost half, right? Almost half of people that get AI tools, that get to use approved AI tools, then turn around and say that, hey, a lot of these don't meet their needs, all right? So, these are just some pretty recent statistics, right, about what's really going on out in the field. You can kind of plot where you think your organization is. All right, so when I say the word operationalizing, the definition for operationalizing, when I use that word, sometimes that word doesn't have a lot of meaning to people. So I want to give this word a definition. So for 26, because the definition is going to probably evolve, but for 26, here are 4 things that I would sure think about when you think about operationalizing. The first one is you can say these things, right? One is, as a leadership team, we're completely committed to leading from the front. In other words, we're going to be great examples of how to use these AI tools. We are going to have a strategy. We're going to have a vision. We're going to be pushing people to the vision, right? So this is part of operationalizing is your leadership team is on the same page with each other and clearly has a vision for AI that they are communicating and working the organization towards. All right, you've got the adoption of AI tools across departments, and I would dare to say all through the workforce. This is an important thing. We have too many people we run into that they'll have 2 or 3 departments that have leaders that love AI, and so those departments are really strong. Yet a whole bunch of the other ones, they don't understand all of this, right? So we want even adoption of AI tools. That's important if you're leaders to really make sure you're getting that. That's operationalizing it. That's getting out of we're just experimenting still. All right, one of the hot, difficult things to do today that's part of operationalizing is making good decisions with AI architecture, meaning what tools are we using? What platforms are we using? How are we connecting AI to our internal data sources? How are we connecting AI tools to important applications that we use? Right? We have some clients that are wise enough to literally create blueprints of, hey, here is how our AI works. Right? Here is how people, what tools they use, what it's connected to, how knowledge flows. So you can create a blueprint. And if you ever feel like, okay, I don't even know how I would do that, you guys can just ask. Somebody just email us and say, hey, we want to see a sample and how do we build a blueprint? We'll help you so you understand that. But you've got to make great decisions on your architecture. And let's not do what we did 20, 30 years ago and make terrible decisions like we did with the software layer. All right, we have to be committing time and money to this. You cannot say we're going to operationalize AI, but we really don't have a budget and we're not really going to give people time to be able to invest in this. So these are the 4 things that I think are kind of a definition for operationalizing in 26. All right, let's unpack some keys to operationalizing, and I'm going to break down 4 of these keys for you in more detail of what needs to be a focus next year. But I want you to see kind of the top 10 things that we might say these are pretty critical when it comes to operationalizing, of which 4 will be a focus for next year. So leadership commitment, that's always where this starts. As I mentioned, we can almost look at anybody we work with, and you can see based on the leadership commitment, how well the organization's going to do with AI. It's as simple as that, but we don't always see it. AI governance and risk control are 2 different things. So I'm going to put the risk control more in orange, but governance is just policies and procedures, right? That's obviously an important thing in operationalizing, is just to help with risk control, but help start getting people to be safe. Risk control we look at as an active, ongoing practice when you have a lot of AI tools already working. All right, creating fertile ground with your team. Now, there are about 6 bullet points underneath this one. And so I'm not going to go over all 6 bullet points underneath it, but a critical piece of operationalizing is creating that fertile ground with your team. That's everything from the adaptable culture for AI to how we get skills into people, how do we re-architect the workplace, right? We've got to create fertile ground so that people are excited about AI and not nervous or anxious about what it's going to do. If there are still people in your organization asking, hey, is this trying to replace my job? Then you're not doing your job. Because 3 years in, we should still not have team members saying things like, hey, is this going to replace my job? That should have been addressed a year ago, if not 2 years ago. So you got to create fertile ground with your entire team. All right, now we're going to move in to 4 that we're going to talk about in some more detail. Team skills and getting high usage for AI. Big piece of operationalizing. And I'm not just talking about people knowing how to use Copilot or ChatGPT. I'll break that down for you here in a minute. All right, use case harvesting. One of the hotter things that the activities going on right now in AI. When I told you, when you see people who in 25 are already starting to operationalize, those are organizations that already have done the use case harvesting. All right, so certainly by next year, everyone listening to me right now should have a process where they are capturing use cases. Again, I'll give you more information on that in a second. Building an AI acceleration capability, right? We tend to call it an AI acceleration hub. So now you have a bunch of use cases. How do we go get those things built? And so we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then there's the architecture and the platforms, right? These decisions I told you are so important. We're going to have to make a lot of decisions in 26, many of us, about what tools to use and how to connect these tools to our legacy systems. All right. I'm going to finish the 10, but we're not going to talk about these at the top of the stack now, right? One would be workforce optimization. Another one is doing an AI lean process. So if you think about, we've had lean manufacturing, right? A lot of us grew up understanding being a black belt and lean manufacturing. We've gone to white collar lean, right? So leaning out in an office world. And now there's a new generation that is AI lean. And this one makes a lot of sense because you have AI tools now that can think, that can make decisions, that can help oversee workflows. In other words, you have a new toolbox of AI tools that can further lean out processes in organizations. So AI lean as a process that can be done in your organization is something that is going to be very interesting for the future. Then redoing or upgrading your organizational strategy. So one of the things is when you become elite with using AI tools, you're going to find it opens up some changes or some innovations that you can do with your business strategy. And so that would be 9. And then I would say AI convergence is the last part of operationalizing, which is how do we integrate AI with other technologies? A lot of people ask me, what comes next after AI? Well, we could say quantum computing, but I think what really is going to come next is a whole new set of recipes where you have AI plus biotech plus the metaverse, right? Or AI plus quantum computing plus Internet of Things. It's going to be the convergence of a number of technologies that we've already developed where that recipe creates some completely new capabilities. So anyway, there you go. There's 10 keys to operationalizing AI. For those of you who follow the updates and like the updates, just a little hint, some of the future updates that you're going to see are up here on these black topics, right? Where we're continuing to try to paint a picture for you of what's coming next, right? With this thing that we call the AI journey. All right, let me unpack those 4 a little bit more. So skills, I'm going to do these in order that I put them into the list. Organizational skills. So when I say that, a lot of people are just thinking about, how do we get our users to use Copilot? I actually want to show it to you in a bit different way, the way we think about the skills that are necessary next year to operationalizing things. All right, the first one is your IT department. So your technologists have to really gain some skills in AI orchestration. Right now, this has a lot to do with architecture, but it's not just the architecture itself. It's orchestrating how do we move knowledge where and when? How do we put new AI auditing capabilities together? We've never had to really audit the software layer. Once you got it installed and it worked, you didn't have to audit the software layer to see if it went off the rails. Well, that's not going to be true with the intelligence layer, with the AI layer. The IT department's not only going to have to help orchestrate the build out of it and the architecting of it, somebody is going to have to watch over it. I would say even sometimes audit it to make sure that the AI tools haven't gone off the rails, have been mistrained, have just started to degrade. So there's a lot to, and a bunch of new skills that are going to have to be learned by the IT people, the technologists, in order to keep the organizational mind, right, the synthetic organizational mind working properly. All right. The second one is that kind of full team, high level co-working with AI skills. So this is almost everyone who is employed being able to use AI tools at a high level, right? At a good level. And, we always talk about co-working, right? Co-working with synthetic technology or with robots, right? But we need the full team to be comfortable, to be inspired. That's an important word, inspired, to be self-learning, right? So that's a big thing we're going to need from skills is all of our team. This is very much like, by the way, that almost everybody in the organization needs to understand how to use Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, right? Microsoft PowerPoint. Like there's certain types of technology that were just basics. It's going to be the same way now with various AI tools. These things are going to become basics. The faster we can get our teams to adopt these basics, the better. All right, the third thing we want to do next year is we want to have identified, we want to start giving incentives, we want to really start helping out the people that we would classify as AI makers, right? So if you think there's 3 levels of skills, there's just basic AI skills, and then there's AI makers, and then there's AI developers. So if you think about those 3 levels, the AI developers, probably that's coming from the IT department, right? Or the technology services group. The makers could be what we would have called power users in the past. People that have the ability to work with AI tools to create an agent, to create an automation, right? To create something that is more than just, hey, build a document for me or build a PowerPoint for me. Like actually to build something that is operational inside the organization. Now, the good news about this, a lot of the platforms are no-code, low-code platforms to build agents, right? In other words, you just talk to them in English. Remember what Jensen said, right, at NVIDIA, that the programming language of the future is English. All right, his point being, you can just talk to an AI platform and have it build an agent for you. Now, not everybody's going to do this. Not everybody's going to be comfortable or qualified. But next year, you want to start identifying people across the organization that are in this category. They are AI makers. You can call them whatever you want. You can call them something else. But it is something that is in between the regular AI user and an AI developer. Now, we sometimes think of this as citizen automation specialists, right? So citizen automation specialists. We have a whole program for how to help grow these, but that's a lot how we think about these AI makers. They are citizen automation specialists. So there you go, just a different way to think about skills in 26. All right. 4 years ago, we did a think tank. The think tank was called The Rise of the Digital Centaur, right? The Rise of the Centaurs. You're going to hear us go back to talking about this more next year, right? This talking about, hey, we've got to start looking at something more than just a power user, right? We have to be looking for highly evolved human beings with highly evolved technology skills. And so 4 years ago, when we started talking about this concept of your employees being digital centaurs, this AI wave is just amplifying this concept. So again, in 26, get ready. You're going to hear about this again from us, right? About the need to develop digital centaurs, who are the people who can be makers. Full use case harvesting next year, emphasis on the word full. So there are some organizations that have done some use case harvesting, and sometimes they'll ask us for help. We'll show up and they'll say, okay, well, here's 20 use cases. We're talking about something different. We're talking about a very well thought out program where you're doing use case harvesting across the entire organization. And so you go department by department, you get the team members from that department to come up with their ideas for how to do use cases. Now, only half of the win here is creating 30 use cases in a department. That's only one of the wins. The other win is winning hearts and minds. It is people in a department feeling like they are part of the AI journey, right? Some of these are their ideas about what can be done with AI. If we say to a department, what ideas do you have for how we can best capture hours back? What things are you doing that are mundane, highly repeatable, right? And AI should be able to do it. You don't have to tell us how to do it, just what are things you think an AI should be able to do? When they give us a bunch of ideas, some of these ideas will be fantastic. Some of these ideas may not be fantastic. But when people give us these ideas, if something changes in them, so yes, we have an inventory of idea, but because they shared the idea, they are much more bought in now to the AI dream. They're much more bought into having an adaptive culture to accept AI tools. In a lot of cases, the fear about, oh, these AI tools are going to replace me, lowers because they gave us the idea and they were like, hey, this could make my job so much easier. Hey, that's what we're trying to do, okay? So you want to do full use case harvesting across all departments, make sure that's all done in 26. Then you've got to have a process to gather as many of these use cases as possible. Like I said, it could be, I'll tell you honestly, when we do it, if there's a department that's got 15 people in it, we typically are going to get somewhere between 75 and 125 ideas, just to give you an idea of scale. I mean, this is across many different times we've done this. So it's not just a few ideas. So you want to gather as many as possible. They're not all winners, like I said, but at least people feel like they got to put their idea out there. But then you have to be able to rank these ideas. So you do have to figure out what are the top 10. How are we even ranking them? Are we ranking them on which ones are the easiest to build? Are we ranking them on which ones are going to gather the most hours? Right? But we're going to gather as much as we possibly can. Then we're going to rank them. Then we're going to give this responsibility to the department lead. So whoever runs that department now has an inventory of opportunities that they can now build, or they can have somebody help them build. And it's important that we don't have all of the use cases dumped on IT people, for example. That isn't the way to make this work. The way to make this work is the head of the department, they're responsible for this use case list now. They're responsible for how fast do they want to go to start actually building some of these use cases. And again, I'll just remind you, the process of doing use case harvesting and why we do it by department for every department is we're winning hearts and minds all along the way. That's half of the value of doing use case harvesting. So if you feel like you've not done this or you haven't done this fully, 2026 is the year, not 2027. 2026 is the year because it's a big step in operationalizing. And then what I told you right behind that, once you have all of these use cases, now you have to think about accelerating. How do we accelerate the ability to get these use cases built? Now, think about the Accelerator Hub, the capability, as a way to help makers thrive. Because now the makers have even more use cases that they've got sitting in front of them they're excited about, right? And if they have turned themselves into a citizen automation specialist, right? Well, then they need tools, they need resources sometimes to help them make sure these things get built. We're going to have a new model to test all these new AI models as they come out, right? So there has to be a method to do that. One of the things in a very quickly evolving technology world is you've got to be able to test and sandbox new things. So part of an Accelerator Hub capability is, great, you know, Microsoft just came out with, or pardon me, OpenAI came out with ChatGPT 5.1, and right behind it a week later, Google comes out with Gemini 3.0. If you want to understand which one of those tools could do the best job for one of your use cases or all of your use cases, there has to be a way to test these. There has to be a sandbox that people can play in. So that's got to be part of an Accelerator Hub. And then again, the budget, right? None of this happens without money. Let me give you, I'll try to make this really simple, right? As far as accelerating the capability to build AI tools. You have three opportunities. One is to grow these makers. So grow one or two people in every department that can actually make and create AI automation tools. So that's a matter of education. That's a matter of putting a program together. And then it's a matter of being intentional. to say, hey, we want a maker in every one of our departments, right? So that would be first thing you can do to accelerate. Second thing you can do to accelerate is interns or co-ops. We are finding that in universities, when anybody who has a technology program or an engineering program, if you get one of those students to intern, or you talk to a number of them that possibly would like to intern, and you tell them, hey, I have a whole bunch of AI use cases that I would love you to help build, and we can go pick out things that would be good for you to learn on. You would be amazed how many of the use cases you can get built by interns or co-ops. And again, low price for the amount of work you can get done. And there's always the possibility that you fall in love with one of these interns. Like they're fantastic and you decide you want to hire them when they get out of school. The third thing are vendors. So there are a growing amount of AI tool vendors. And so you can take, especially the more complicated AI use cases to them, and they can build those for you. All right. In all cases, almost, it costs some money. So, I mean, it isn't going to be free to go build out this AI power. I am starting to see too many organizations that are trying to operationalize get in a ditch right after use case harvesting. So they do great right up to use case harvesting. They do that, they have 300 use cases, and now they're in a ditch. And the ditch is because they don't have a way to go build these at any kind of pace. They hadn't thought about that, they hadn't planned for it. So just don't make that mistake. Just a note, again, these are all things I did some research on. This was one of them, and this was actually, we aggregated a number of reports to get this. By the end of 2025, that was kind of our comment, only about 4 in 10 organizations have a dedicated AI build-out budget, right? Now, the rest of them might be spending money, but they're just kind of taking it out of general funds. They have not dedicated money to AI. All right, in 26, you should have some dedicated money and time to AI. If you're operationalizing at the pace you need to be at, I'm not going to argue about how big the budget be. I'm not going to tell you, oh, it's got to be 1% of your revenue, right? Everyone's different. I'm just telling you, there's got to be some amount of money that is earmarked just to accelerate the build out of the use cases. All right. Also, just kind of a side comment. I was just on a call this morning, and we were talking about this topic, right? That building out these use cases, building out AI tools is not like building software. And I don't know that everyone's clued into that yet. I think when people think you're building an AI agent or an AI automation, some kind of automation system, they think it is like building a software application. It is not. You know, in software, you almost start with a blank slate, right, of tools to build a piece of software, or you go buy somebody's software and it has to be twisted or turned into what you want it to be. When you're building AI tools, the brain's already there. You're already starting with the brain. All you're having to do is teach the brain what to do. So that's one thing. Another thing is generally the software tools are smaller, lighter weight, less expensive, faster, but they do more focused things. Like a lot of times when we get a piece of software like Salesforce, it does so many things, right? But we're able to build hundreds of AI tools, hundreds of these AI use cases that are kind of separate tools that may be able to talk to each other, right? Talk to our legacy systems, but they are not like building a big piece of software. So it's just something, again, to keep in mind for next year when you're operationalizing. The processes, the budget, the requirements, right? Even the vendors you might use are going to be very different than what it was like when we were building out software capabilities. All right, AI architecture and platforms. So I told you again, this is one of the hotter things that is coming on right now. Here's my 3-4 biggest thoughts on this for everybody. First of all, mistakes you might make next year could be really costly. So in other words, if you say, I'm going to build a bunch of agents, and you build agents in a platform, and then that platform ends up in a year from now not being a great platform, the odds are extremely high you cannot move the agents that you built from that poor platform to a new platform. You can't do that. It's not like data in a piece of software where you could say, hey, we built a CRM system, bought one, we put a bunch of data into it, we've been running it, but now we don't like it, and we want to move to a new CRM system. Great. You could take out all the data and you could move it to the new system. Well, we don't have a great way to transfer knowledge. So when you build an AI tool and you build knowledge into it, and then you decide that's the wrong tool, it's going to be extremely difficult to just move knowledge. So there are a lot of mistakes that can be made with architecture. We're going to have to be careful. And part of the problem with this is things are moving so quickly. So if the tools weren't changing and leapfrogging each other so fast, maybe it wouldn't be a big deal about making a mistake. It'd be easier to make the decisions. Unfortunately, it's difficult because we do have not only the current providers are leapfrogging each other, we got new people entering the game all the time. So what I would say is just be ready to evolve quickly. Don't sign long-term contracts. Don't get real married to any one platform. And I don't care if that's Microsoft or Google. I don't even care if it's a big platform. Like, don't get married to platforms. Don't think you're going to get to be able to do everything you want with AI inside of Salesforce, right? So be careful about the fact that we can't get locked in, get vendor locked with big ones that say that they're going to be able to do everything for us. We have to be ready to be nimble and kind of evolve to other platforms. Yes, I know I said that's a problem. That's how you're going to move the knowledge. There are ways that we can make it easier to move knowledge. I'm just saying be ready to sign short-term agreements and don't get vendor locked at this time. Now, remember, if you listen to an update from last year, year and a half ago, we did an update and we introduced the concept of the organizational mind. And the organizational mind being a thinking layer. I'm going to give more detail on that here in a second, right? But this is what we should be building towards. So every software platform decision we make, every architecture decision we make should be looking at what's the end. And the end is building out a synthetic layer of intelligence that acts like an organizational mind. That's the end. You wouldn't build a building or a house without understanding exactly what it's going to look like when you're done. But yet we do that with technology now. We build out our software layer, we build out now AI without having any idea or any picture of what it's going to look like when it's done. So please don't do that. Now, architecting also isn't just the technology. With AI, we're talking about how do we best integrate human and digital capital. So some of the architecting is, all right, how is this department going to look different when we've got 10 people in it, but we've now added 100 different AI use cases and instances that are automating that department? That is also a part of architecting. All right. I mentioned the thinking layer and the organizational mind. So let me just unpack this for a minute for you. This might make a bit more sense to technical people, but non-technical people, I think you'll get it. So when I say organizational mind, what I'm saying is, we have an infrastructure layer, a data layer, we have a software layer, and now we have a whole new layer of technology, which is the intelligence layer. Now, I think about that layer as a thinking systems layer. And that's whether it's AI or whether it's robots, right? It's just systems that can think, that can store knowledge, can help make decisions. All right, when you think in terms of this layer and building it, these two pieces of the layer, we've been doing these for a while. Security, privacy, data harvesting, right, delivery. We've been doing this in the software layer for a while. So we're familiar with how to do this for the most part, but everything else I'm going to show you is new about architecting this layer. All right, for example, the platforms. These are all new platforms that we're going to be using that support AI capabilities. I don't care whether it's LLMs, reasoning models, whether it's agents, GPTs, automations, bots, whatever you want to call them, right? We have platforms, not just one, we have different platforms that will support different kinds of tools. Once we have these tools, they have a capability that we really haven't worked with much before, and that is the ability to self-learn, to self-improve, to train themselves, or for us to train them. Again, think software layer. We didn't have this with the software layer. We didn't install software and it was self-healing, right? It was self-improving. Sure, the manufacturer would update it, every however often. But I'm talking about tools that every single day can learn and get better. That's one of the things we'll be architecting into this thinking systems layer, is the ability for these tools to get smarter every single day. And we will teach them how to do that. All right, we will have to monitor and audit this intelligence, right? This thinking system layer, because it can go off the rails, it can become untrained, it could degrade as far as how it's making decisions. Again, we didn't really see that in the software layer. Software didn't just degrade. Software didn't just lose its capabilities because it got bad data put into it. This layer can. And so that's something new that we will have to deal with, is how do we oversee and audit this thinking systems layer? All right, then we have a bunch of AI tools. If you think about the toolkit, right, it's not, when we say this word AI or this concept, it is a toolbox, right? And so you think about the different tools we have. We've got the internal GPT, right? So just let's say the internal AI tool that people build and then they connect it to internal resources and multiple different LLMs or LRMs, right? So you have your own internal standard tool that most employees are using. Could be Copilot or could be something you're building. All right, then you have the embedded intelligence inside of current software applications. Every software application is starting to integrate the thing they call AI. I think about it as intelligence. They're just adding intelligence to their software layer. Those are embedded tools. Then we have the agents or bots or GPTs. You have the platforms that build tools that can go take actions. And then we have the new one that's starting to come up, the personal AI tools. The tool that will know you. Once you own it, you will never let it go. It will know you from now on for the rest of your life. You will configure it. You will decide if your personal AI is a friend. You'll decide if it's a counselor. You'll decide if it is a mentor. You'll decide if it's a coach, right? You'll decide what kind of capabilities your personal AI has. You will give your personal AI your credit cards. It'll go do transactions on your behalf. It'll go do work on your behalf, right? The personal AI. Now, a whole nother discussion about how messy this is going to get at offices when you have people using their personal AI tools to help them with work, when that is their personal AI tool. I think about it a little bit like when I see somebody carrying 2 iPhones, right, or 2 mobile phones, and they have their work mobile phone and their personal mobile phone. And that was the solution, right, that they came up with, or the organization came up with. Are we going to get to a situation where organizations are going to say, well, you have to have your work personal AI, and you have to keep that separate from your personal AI? Because if you leave here, we're going to need you to delete everything that had to do with your work AI, and we don't believe you can do that. So anyway, my point is, this thinking systems architecture has components in it we've never seen before, dynamics that are going to be completely new to us. Hence why when I tell you architecture, AI orchestration, it's a thing. And it's a thing we have to get better at in 2026, because it is the foundation of being able to build from that point forward. And it's the foundation of security and privacy. So, going to be important. All right, let's go into a bit more detail, just philosophically. So when I talk about this thinking architecture, I look at this as, again, the ability to use the synthetic layer of tools, the intelligent layer of tools, to build the organizational mind. To try to take the conversation a little further than we have before, the organizational mind will do at least 5 things. Like I'll give you 5 key things it's going to do so that you understand this concept better. One is just to hold and move knowledge. Right now, humans are the holders and the movers of knowledge in an organization, almost 100%. So the organizational mind will have the ability to absorb knowledge, hold knowledge, move knowledge to new team members potentially, move knowledge to customers or clients or patients, right? So the organizational mind can start taking some of the load of where all knowledge was held and how all knowledge was changed and delivered, right? It'll take over some of that from the human beings. Not all of it, but some of it. All right, the organizational mind will be able to make some of the organizational decisions. Not all of them, but maybe 30, 35% of the decisions that today are made by humans. We will just be able to outsource to this synthetic mind, right? This organizational mind. And then we need the organizational mind to run the agents. Because again, we have all these use cases. Some of these use cases are going to be agent-based. So you're going to need this organizational mind to coordinate the agents all along the way. All right, I'll give you 2 more things. The organizational mind will have a series of experts inside of it so that anybody who works in the organization can say, hey, I need to talk to the virtual engineer. I need to talk to the virtual lawyer. And you're not talking to one that's just a general lawyer or a general CPA. You're talking to one that is trained on your organization's needs or specialties. So the organizational mind will host a number of these experts that you can have help build a PowerPoint, or just have a conversation with, or help solve a problem, or help look over a contract, right? So anyway, just know that's one thing. That's the 4th thing that the mind will do. And then the last one is what we think of as AI sentinels. All right, so an AI sentinel is the capability to do oversight or surveillance on something pretty broad. So just to give you 5 examples, almost every organization would have. One would be operational oversight. So I have an AI sentinel system that's watching over everything about how we are operating right now. And it can talk to me, I can talk to it. It can warn us of things. It can give us advice on how to make improvements. So that would be one sentinel. A DAS, dynamic audit system, that's a financial system. It's called a DAS, right? So that's something that's watching over every financial transaction. Again, it can have boundaries. It would know when to alert us to different things. We can automate a number of the financial transactions. Team performance would be for HR, right? That would be a sentinel system that watches over our employees. It can watch over their physical safety. It can watch over how much they're working. It can watch over their output. It can watch over a lot of different things. Then we have a market surveillance system. I love this one. This is a sentinel AI that is watching all my competitors online, watching my industry. It's checking every single day, every day. It wakes up and checks anything new. If any of my competitors added anything to their website, it tells me. So I have a market surveillance system, right, that is telling me anything that moves in my industry. And by the way, this is not hard to go build systems like this. All right. And asset monitoring, whatever your assets are. If your assets are buildings, if your assets are products, if your assets are people, right, you're going to have an asset monitoring system that the AI is doing in real time. So again, just think sentinels, think holistic monitoring systems. That's the 5th part of a thinking architecture. Hopefully that paints a bit better of a picture. The other comment that I would just make about this is, add all of this up, this organizational mind, this synthetic layer of intelligence is going to become your organization's or one of your organization's most valuable assets. It's probably going to be more important, than your inventory, right, or your buildings or things like that. It isn't the most important asset. I might argue your people still are, but this is going to be an incredibly important asset, and we are building it now. Like, we have started to build it, whether you understand that or not. It's like you've cleared the ground. You may not have a whole picture of the building that you're getting ready to build, but you cleared the ground because you knew you needed to clear the ground. And then, by the way, maybe you poured some cement, you poured something, you created a foundation because you knew you had to have a foundation for something, right? So just understand we have already started to lay the foundation. We are moving from that experiment stage to that operationalizing phase. This is the journey we're on, is to build this thinking architecture, and we should be able to make some progress next year. So important for you to kind of see that picture in your mind. If you're going to operationalize, like I said, you got to have a vision. You got to know what we're operationalizing to. All right, I wanted to break down just leaders and their roles in 26. I'll just go through this quickly. CEOs, they've got to have the big picture in mind and the overall AI strategy. So the CEOs should care about what we just said about the organizational mind. The CEOs should care about this new synthetic intelligence layer that we can go build. They have to be able to look at the organization from 30,000 feet. That's their job. So it's important that they have this big picture in mind. All right, the CFO, they got to take responsibility for the financial impacts and the investments. So again, we need to start putting money into this, and we need to know what the ROI is. We got to manage the investment process in AI. No investment, very little AI. Right? So we need the CFO to really step up and start helping the organization understand how much money can we put in and what do we expect to get back out, and then holding people accountable for that. The COO should care a lot about automation, about AI lean, right? That concept. Should care a lot about creating efficiency, in some cases safety, right? So the COO should really be looking to operationalize, to try to make improvements in the operation they oversee. And they should have a good vision of how much they'd like to get done in 26. Marketing should care a lot about using AI tools to further personalize relationships with customers and clients. What's everything we can do with AI to know people better, gather more data on them, use that data to know how to communicate with them in better ways, how to manage transactions, follow-on transactions, the list goes on, right? But marketing should be using AI to get higher revenue, higher levels of marketing for less money, because AI tools can do that. All right, if you're the HR lead, you absolutely got to take responsibility for the integration of digital capital and human capital. How are we going to reorganize things inside of organizations when we are replacing some of the tasks and capturing some of the hours on our humans? How do we do that process effectively over the next 4 or 5 years? We do not want to upset the apple cart with our team. We don't want people living in fear. We want people to embrace using these tools and re-architecting their jobs so that their jobs are better than they ever were, and the organization is getting better results than it ever has. HR's got to play a real leading role with this. And then finally, the CIO. I want to reiterate, leaders who think you're going to dump the entire AI strategy on the IT department, that's not an effective strategy. The IT department already is under load. They're already struggling with the software layer, the data layer, and infrastructure, and security. So the CIO has to take a lot of responsibility for architecture and orchestration, the things we've been talking about, not usage, right? Not even innovation, not even coming up with all the use cases. That's not what we can do, right? Or the CIO can do based on everything else they're doing. What they can do is really focus on architecture, helping to make good architecture decisions and getting platforms spun up. All right. Again, just another kind of combining 3 or 4 studies that we went out and kind of researched. This is we think a fair statement for late in 2025 is that only around 1 in 10 C-suite executives today can really be called a strong AI leader. Probably 20 or 30% are promising, but it's 1 in 10 that really understands this wave, has created a vision, has communicated this vision over and over again to their team. Like if I said, hey, look, here's the profile of a C-suite that is a strong AI leader, you'd probably agree. Like we probably got 1 in 10. It can't be that way at the end of 26. The end of 26, we need like 50% at least to be strong AI leaders. All right. just remind you of this again, right? That we started here with this value curve. Every single one of you is somewhere on the curve. And as leaders, it is so important for you to understand we are in the critical stage now. AI is out of the experimental, okay? We need to quit talking about, some of the ridiculous things we're talking about, is it going to destroy society? Is it going to make us all dumber? Like, we need to get away from the philosophical conversations, and not that they're bad, but we're spending way too much energy on that and not enough energy on operationalizing these tools, and then working along the way to make them as safe as we can make them. All right, I can't make it clearer than that. All right, these updates, and Jason, I approve, or I thank you for the takeaways that you put into chat. So these, I just want to kind of wrap up since this is the last one of the year. The updates that we do to try to help you all have what we would say is preemptive vision. We want you to see what's going on, in this case with AI, better than any of your competitors. That's why we do these. And we don't charge for them, right? These are all the best we can do to try to put ideas and concepts in your minds to help you win. And just to review, if you look at this year, what we did, right? We started off early in the year. Is education dead? It's a critical issue. Like, we are getting ready to work with our first big university on trying to put AI all through the university, right? But it's an important thing is what's going on with education. Then we did building an intelligence strategy in 25, right? Really trying to get you to think about how to build a strategy early in the year. Then we did, is your board future ready, right? We need boards to be online. Then we did a kind of a breaking news item. We thought we'd start experimenting with doing a breaking news item. We'll probably do more of these next year, where when something new gets announced that is really cool and interesting, we're just going to do a quick 30-minute breaking news thing and invite all of you to come to it. Look for more of those next year. We just experimented with that one this year. Update 4, transformation of human capital and HR. And then update 5, the robots are coming. Because every time we say AI, we also mean robotics. We also mean machine intelligence. It's not just the synthetic software side intelligence. And then today, operationalizing AI in 2026, right? That's the reason we do these. You all have season passes, most of you. Just know what we will continue next year, doing the same kind of thing, trying to just give you an hour of trying to get you to think in maybe different ways or new ways, things that we see that are working, things we think are coming, just to try to give you the preemptive vision so that you're winning out in the market. All right, to getting ready for this today, I asked ChatGPT, 5.1, by the way, in case you care, right, the new one. I said, hey, I need a quote that nobody has ever said, like not a human has said, but is about leaders and the future. And so ChatGPT gave me a few different quotes. I even checked it and said, are you sure no human being has said these words before, right? And so ChatGPT could be lying to me, but if it's not lying to me, this is a ChatGPT quote. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. And I liked it. The future bends towards leaders who work to see it before it's born. That's what we're doing together, my friends, right? We're just trying to see the future before it's born, because we want that future to bend in our direction.